Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. Tarek, I got a fun, exciting, and very unexpected episode for you guys this evening because as of yesterday, a recompilation project for Dinosaur Planet was released. This is basically what would go on in part to become Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube, but Rare was in development of Dinosaur Planet on Nintendo 64, and maybe about 4 years ago, a prototype ROM was leaked to the internet. Now there is a recompilation project that will handle that ROM, giving you the game and all of that upscaled recompilation goodness with quality of life features and even some rudimentary widescreen support. Just be aware that this is currently at version 0.1, so there's a lot of work still left to be done, but it is an awesome thing to jump into and check out because the developer of this, Ethan, has done an incredible job, even if it is the early days. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But honestly, now seeing a decompilation and recompilation project for a game that never truly released is got to be one of the wildest things I've seen. Of course, I've been talking about decomps and recomps on the channels a lot recently. It is becoming a very popular way to basically quote-unquote remake classic games and improve them for a modern audience. But this is the first one, at least in my memory, that was actually a canceled game. If you can think of anything, leave me a comment down below because I would be curious. And honestly, I've always been a little bit interested in Dinosaur Planet. Sure, there's not 100% a complete game here, but what is on offer is a ton of fun. Now, there are different versions of the game out there. There is the vanilla build, and then there's all of the different modified versions that kind of fix up a couple issues. Currently, at the revision this is sitting, it's only going to use the vanilla ROM. I'm sure that will change in the future, but just be aware if you're going to try to make this thing work, pay attention to the notes on GitHub because it's only going to accept one file. And there's definitely still some bugs and glitches in this build, so it's not like it's a complete game that you can play from start to finish without having some issues, so just be aware of that going in. Because if you temper your expectations, you will have a lot of fun with this one, but this first enemy right here, just run away from him completely. It seems like there's no hit detection added in whatsoever, or the hitbox is absolutely messed up, because the best thing you can do is just run down the stairs and continue the cutscene. So if you get stuck in the beginning, I wanted to give you that one little tip, that way you know what's going on, because it's a reality that I think you'll get stuck at this point and not be quite sure how to progress. But honestly, the cutscenes in this game and everything else just look spectacular in this recompiled version. Even the menus here and all of the different stats you're going to get on screen, giving you the directions on how to play the game, just look so good. But like I said, just ignore this enemy completely. Go ahead, strafe, and run right down the stairs. You will enter into the next cutscene, and that'll progress you into the main game. Hopefully soon, some of those other patched up ROMs that fix a couple of the bugs are added into this recompilation. That way it's going to support more than one version of the actual ROM, but for early days, kind of proof of concept, this is just wild. And again, I love the fact that this is a recompilation for a game that never actually released retail-wise on Nintendo 64, and honestly, having played the beta of this on Mr. FPGA on the Nintendo 64 core, and now the recomp, Rare was definitely onto something, but it just seems like one of those things that was so late in the Nintendo 64's lifespan, it makes perfect sense that it was then transitioned over to something like GameCube, and then Nintendo came in to decide they could put the Star Fox franchise in it. And honestly, Star Fox Adventures, not a bad game whatsoever, but I would say I would have rather have seen what Dinosaur Planet did as far as the game was concerned versus actually shoehorning the Star Fox property in there. But this is relatively stable, and I will show you the options in just a minute because you're going to be able to use MSAA and do a bunch of other visual enhancements, and everything seems to be holding up well, and this upscales in the resolution extremely nicely because obviously the Nintendo 64 could be a little bit of a Vaseline mess here and there. I love the hardware, but it's just kind of what it looked like. But here in the recomp, everything is clean, the geometry looks good. Of course, it still has that kind of aged look to it because they are still the models from Nintendo 64, but Rare always made an excellent looking game, and getting it in the recomp status just makes it look that much better, and that real-time lighting there on the face when that egg is spinning around looks quite good. I'm going to do two soundtrack samples, first some of the audio around the actual game, and then I'll do some of the voice acting as well because it is quite good. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back with more. We'll talk about the audio in just a second, but let's go over some of the options. You're going to see here you have a debug UI, you have standard out messages and debug interfaces that you can use. You also have the ability to completely rebind the controls like you see in all of the other Nintendo 64 decomps and recomps, and that's going to be really nice, especially if you're going to use a controller that technically isn't designed for Nintendo 64 on your PC. You have all of these graphical options, including 4X MSAA and widescreen support as well, but that seems to be a little bit hit or miss right now. The sound is just a slider, and this is going to have full mod support, so I'm sure you're going to see a lot more Dinosaur Planet modded into this game. And then you just have that debug menu in general as well, so it's got a nice suite of actual options. And as far as the sound is concerned, outside of a couple sound effects which are a little bit hollow and feel a little bit clipped out, probably just because they were temped in for the beta, everything else here sounds fine. As far as I went into the game, outside of that first enemy not really having a hitbox and just having to run past them to get the next cutscene to initiate, everything seemed to be working relatively well. And this is fun because, again, this is just the first revision of this recomp. Things are going to improve. It's going to support more versions of the ROM, including some that have had a lot of the bug fixes added in. So you're probably going to get the next 6 months to a year of fully playable Dinosaur Planet on Nintendo 64 recomp, and that's just going to be absolutely incredible, because trying to play this thing on real hardware is fun, trying to play it on Mr. FPGA is fun, but getting this quality of visuals as well as all of the other options just makes it that much more fun. And it really makes me think I'd love to see something like a Conker's Bad Fur Day recomp as well, because that's definitely a game that could use that same status. And if you get confused here at this area, you have to wait for these beams to actually disappear. If you get close to them at the wrong time, they will reappear, so the timing's a little bit strange. So it seems like another area where you could actually get a little bit quote-unquote soft lock out of confusion, because you can definitely tell this game was not finished, and some of the logic as far as what the developers expect of you in a particular area, you need to just think about it a little bit harder. But the nice thing is, every other enemy I encountered that wasn't the first enemy on the airship is completely beatable. They have a full hitbox, and I like this little puzzle here as well, kind of giving you some environmental clues. You can open up the door by standing on it, but it will not stay closed or open unless you put a weight on it. So you find something in the area, giving you the concept that you can affect the world around you with objects in it. It is a little bit of nice breadcrumbing from the actual developers. But let's do one more soundtrack sample, this time with audio, because if this dude in the next room isn't just pretending to be Sean Connery playing James Bond, I don't know what they're trying to do, but it's incredible. 35 seconds and I'll be right back.
Randall, what's happened to you?
It was scales, but I'll be fine. And what about you?
No need to worry about me. You taught me well.
Did you rescue the princess?
Yes, but she's stuck in a cage on the galleon.
My dear, Dinosaur Planet is in extreme danger. You must take this. This is my spell book. General Scales tore out most of the pages.
I mean, if that's not just James Bond played by Sean Connery, I don't know who it is. And obviously that's not actually Sean Connery, but it's doing a sound-alike voice. And you might notice in that dialogue, sometimes one voice line ends abruptly and the next one starts over top. And that's just definitely down to the beta status. And even though a lot of audio samples were heavily compressed to fit on even the biggest of Nintendo 64 carts, that still feels maybe like a temp track and non-final to me, because the overall quality seems way too hollow for something like a retail release. So I'm sure it's one of those things. Maybe people just did voices in the office, or maybe they just put in a very low bitrate version of it for this beta, and then they were going to go around and fix it up in the future. It's always hard to say with games that never came out what would be final and what would be temp, but this cutscene here looks incredible in the recomp engine, and it just feels like something that would have been final in the game. And that to me is just the wildest thing. Decomps and recomps for very popular games that released, like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Symphony of the Night, San Francisco Rush, and all of the other ones we talked about on the channel, make total sense. But I love that there's a developer out there creating a recompilation project for a game that never actually saw completion in its original state. I would have loved to have seen Dinosaur Planet come out on Nintendo 64, and barring that, I would have loved this stay Dinosaur Planet for the GameCube release versus becoming a Star Fox game. It really is one of the big Nintendo what could have beens from the Nintendo 64 era. I'd put it up there right alongside something like Earthbound 64 as far as games that I wanted to see see when we never got a chance to. But the nice thing is, unlike Earthbound 64, which is never leaked to the recording of this video, something like Dinosaur Planet is a game that you can load up on a flash cart and play. You can load it up on Mr. FPJ or an emulator and play, and now you can even load it up in its own recomp project, making the game look prettier and play better than it ever has before. Now, of course, again, I can't state enough that this is just the first release at a 0.1 status, so there's going to be a lot of innovation coming to this, and I will definitely update this video as time goes on, because I'm sure one of the main goals is probably getting that ROM that has some of the bug fixes actually compatible with the recomp, because again, it's just going to be straight up vanilla on this one. I will leave a link in the description below to the GitHub page so you can get the recomp, but of course you're going to have to supply your own files as far as Dinosaur Planet is concerned. If you run into any trouble trying to get it set up, leave me a comment, and if I'm around, I'll give you a hand. But this is 10 out of 10 amazing, a recomp for a game that was canceled, and we just have a beta for. I love to see it, and I think you guys will too. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.